Well, good morning everyone, and how are you doing today? Fernando, how you doing?
Awesome.
What was this?
It's awesome.
That's awesome?
Yep.
Alright guys, so from now on, this means awesome. So what we have here today is something that people ask us about all the time. It just so happened to roll in this morning. Are you excited?
I'm excited.
We're excited. The reason why we're excited is that you guys ask us about this a lot. I have in this case it's a Chevy Tahoe Suburban pickup truck. They're all about the same. But what happens is you wake up in the morning and
There's no sound.
or very little sound for that matter. The tweeters typically don't go, but everything else does.
Yeah.
So there's no sound in the doors. This has this tweeter right here that's fallen out of the mount. This one actually works, kind of. It wasn't working when I pulled it in, but now it's magically working.
Wow.
So when you turn it up, you just get a lot of treble. But then when you go to the other doors, turn it up, nothing. So now that's what's weird about it, because when I pulled it in, that door speaker wasn't playing, the tweeter over there was playing, which it still is, and nothing else was. So basically we had two tweeters, but now we have two tweeters in a mid-range. So kind of. So you can see where this is odd, and that it happened. You can wake up one morning and have no sound. Now the reason for it is that they're just cheap speakers. So today we're going to show you what we do in the case of cheap GM speakers that just magically work and then don't. I know, right?
Ta-da!
Ta-da! Voila! All right, let's get to it. Now the first thing you want to do is start here with the little sail. There's going to be two metal clips behind there that are a bit of a struggle to get out, and sometimes will, as you can see here, remain in the door. For that, grab yourself the metal panel tool and gently remove it, and then stick it back on. Next is going to be the lock unlock. For that, I recommend using the metal tool. This one has just a plastic lock on it on each end, but man, those things stick really well. Switch back to your plastic and go ahead and remove a little piece of plastic around your door handle. There again, two metal clips and a plastic clip down here at the end. Now for the next step, you're going to need a 7mm. Now depending on when your car was made, there could be 1 or 2 7mm screws. If you'll notice right here, there's a little plastic what looks like there should be a screw there. Sometimes there is. Otherwise, the screw is located here. Go ahead and unscrew it. Now be careful with this screw when you're putting it back in, because people love to over tighten them and break the door panel. Now depending on your year, you may or may not have a second screw located behind here. Don't automatically assume that you need to pry this piece up, but if you do need to pry it up, there will be two clips at the front.
They normally stay.
That normally stay, as you can see here, they're stuck into the panel. And then you'll have this screw here. Now if yours is the model that stays in place, you will be unclipping it once you get the door panel off. And trust me, if it doesn't lift up, don't make it, because you'll break it. Remove the 7mm. Next thing you want to do, of course, is remove those metal clips so that you don't cut yourself while you're lifting your door off. And also, like we said before, always remove the clips and put them back while you're working on that part. Now the last thing that you need to contend with is the little marker light here on the bottom. It's best to remove it now if you can. It's not necessary though. You can remove it once you get the door off. Now what happens a lot of the time is that people will knock the whole piece off. It's actually two pieces. This unclips from there. If you do manage to knock it all apart, the bulb will typically fall inside of this and roll around. Just turn it up time, shake it until you get the ball out, and build it back to this. It'll make putting it back in later easier. Now you can just lift up on the door. Unplug the tweeter. And set the door panel aside. Most of the time you're done at this point, you can go ahead and work on the speaker in the door, but because his tweeter is messed up, we're gonna go ahead and pull this grill off and remount it. To do that, you'll notice there's these metal brackets along here. You just bend up on them, and then you can remove the grill. And as you can see from here, this is what happens to the tweeter. There's supposed to be a leg here and of course a corner here. It's missing, it's broken off. It happens all the time. There is plenty of real estate here to go ahead and remount that tweeter into the location via your own screws here and here. Now what we want to do is get this speaker out, and to do that, fairly simple. There's a piece of foam. You pull the foam out and then push down on the tab. There again, the metal tool works really well for this. and your speaker's out. Go ahead and unclip it. This is that, oh, hey. As you can see, this is why you have a problem. You can see daylight. And the reason why you see daylight is because the surround is made out of foam and it is totally dry rotted and is turned into the stickiest goo ever. For this install, we're gonna go ahead and use the Kenwood KFC X174. That's this guy right here. As you can see, compared to the factory speaker, it has a tweeter. This one does not. From the back, a much more robust looking speaker to be going in. To make them fit, we're gonna be using the PAC BKGMSB345. That's this little universal adapter here. It's made to go this way and this way. What we wanna do is match it up to our speaker. As you can see, we have the bigger clip here on the top. So we're gonna match it up to the bigger clip here as opposed to the smaller clip. Now what you wanna do is go ahead and remove these portions, and then we like to put foam on the front and back of this. The speaker's all mounted in the bracket and ready to get snapped into the car. The only thing we need now is some speaker terminals. For this, we're going to use a small ground side and a larger positive side insulated terminal. Now, in most cases, we'd be doing a polarity test right now to figure out what is positive and negative. And if you've never done one before, we have a nice video showing you how to use a 9-volt battery to do that. But this is a GM. GM has used the same wire colors for a very long time. In this door, we have a tan and a gray. And in this door, we have a brown and a yellow. They like to say, let me give him his terminals. Lights up front, darks in the back, tan, brown. And that door you have a light green and a dark green, and a light blue and dark blue. Following that same logic, light green is positive here, dark blue is positive in the back. So to recap, your positives are tan, brown, light green, dark blue. Now once we get our terminals on, go ahead and slide them over and then give them a slight tugging, just like he did there. Sometimes they're extremely loose. You want to make sure they're not. They have to hold on nice and tight. Now if you'd like to solder on your speaker terminals, that's entirely up to you, but be careful doing it. You don't want to superheat the leads, and keep your solder to a minimum. I'll go ahead and it'll click back in place like the factory. And there you go. Your speaker is now mounted. Now this panel does provide you with 3 extra screw points, there, and there. What they're for is that if you're using a heavy speaker like we are here, you may want to add a couple screws to hold that speaker in place. Now not all of them are usable. As you can see on this side, there's no place to put that screw. This side, you can get those 2 screws in. Now what you want to do is go ahead and turn the car on and make sure you have sound, because after all, you don't want to put the door panel on and make sure you don't have any sound, right Fernando?
Correct. It happens.
It does happen. All I want to know is who picked the station this morning.
That.
So we have sound coming out of that door. We'll go ahead and get this guy put back on, and we'll move to the rear door. So on the rear speaker, we're gonna start by removing that same lock-on-lock cover, and it's identical. A little tip on these. So you see the red, and you see the black. If you'll notice, on the finished door, you see red, and then all these other doors you see red. You want to make sure you get this going the right direction. So when you go to put it on, always do one door at a time so that you can check to see which way red is going when you're putting the door you're working on back on. Now there is one 7mm behind the handle, and then another one located in the bottom corner. Next, we need to remove the clip around the handle. Then go ahead and lift up. And then go ahead and remove the power cable from the window roll-up. Now these are a little bit of a pain. So what's holding this guy in place is a metal clip here and a metal clip here. What's holding this onto here are some really cheap plastic. The problem is if you pry this up from the top, a lot of the times you break this off or the switch just falls apart. So what he was doing there is he had pulled the door up and he was pushing from the backside to get it out, because the clip is located on the inside of the door so you can't get to it. Now on that side, it's super easy because the clip is located on the outside. You push it, it pulls right out. Now the last thing he had to do was disconnect this light like we did in the front, and we're all set. Unlike the front, the rear is actually screwed in, and it has 4 T15 Torx head screws. Once you get the screws out, you will need a pry tool to get that off. They don't use foam on these, they use like a butyl. For the same reason they use butyl is why we use foam, so you get a nice insulation barrier and you don't have to worry about plastic on metal rattle. So this is the rear speaker, and as we can see, still see the light of day through this. They are essentially the same speakers. This one just has the plastic mount on it. Now for this install, we are going to switch to a 1/2-inch screw that has a much smaller head than the factory screw does, and is also a Phillips. Mainly we want the smaller head because the way the Kenwood speaker is designed, it has a recessed screw hole here, and the bigger head would not fit on. Then once you get the speaker mounted, go ahead and put the door panel back on, and opposite way you took it off. Now all you need to do is repeat the process on the passenger side, and you'll have 4 new speakers and sound back in your ride, be rolling like you were when you first got it.
Yay!
Or actually you'll be rolling much better because you have a way better speaker than those pieces of crap that were in it.
Oh,
yeah. You know, right? Okay, cool. All right, guys. Well, that's it for today. If you'd like to find the foam that we use to do this, or any of the tools that we use to do this, head over to
dnftooldrawer.com.
All right, guys. What do we say?
On to the next one, guys.
Just like that.